Hello and good afternoon. My name is Jacob O'Connor. I am one of Professor Snelly's old students and a graduate from the Exercise Physiology Master's Program at St. Ambrose back in 2019. Upon completion of the program at St. Ambrose, I ended up going and working in a couple different chiropractic and physical therapy settings. And after completing a few years there, I decided I wanted to go back and actually teach in this content area. So now I am currently teaching, coaching, and running a strength and conditioning program at Stagg High School in Palos Hills, Illinois. Back in 2019, when I was finishing up my master's program through SAU, I had the opportunity to go with Professor Snelly and take part in a study abroad opportunity in Peru, which I will be speaking about today, obviously. When Professor Snelly asked me and my girlfriend Rachel, who will also be speaking, to create a video for her presentation, I had to think for a little bit about, specific experiences or things like that that I would talk about. Not because there weren't very many experiences to kind of outline and to detail and stuff like that, but because there were so many that it was going to be, pretty hard to narrow down the ones that needed to be shared, the ones that were important, things like that. I think one thing that I can definitely start off by saying is that the experience was it was absolutely amazing. Our entire cohort, obviously, as exercise physiologists, loved the opportunity to study changes in human physiology when exposed to changes in altitude as well. But the opportunity to study these changes obviously couldn't have been done in the Quad Cities. So the fact that we were able to go to a place where there was such varying degrees of altitude and see these changes firsthand and see the difficulty and the messiness of data collection when it comes to science is just awesome, and it made it even more special. So even more than that, though, was the fact that, our cohort got an opportunity to experience different cultures and lifestyles that we're not usually accustomed to seeing here. So being able to experience this difference in culture is one of the main things that I personally took away from the entire experience. So it's pretty cool because now, for me, teaching where I am, Stagg is a very diverse school with a large population of EL or English language learners. And so because of this, I love to just kind of share my experiences of when I was studying abroad, of the challenges of communication, of the challenges of having language differences, and just so that I could show these students that empathy for them. And the fact that, they're going through that same challenge, except for the fact that, mine was 2 weeks and they're here for as long as they want to be at this point, So, one of the things that I like to do is talk about this experience during our icebreakers at the beginning of every semester. I just think it's a great way to kind of urge students to, if they have the opportunity to study abroad, to experience different cultures, to help understand differences between backgrounds and religions and stuff like that. Because the ability to learn and understand different cultures, religions, and lifestyles is how we become more accepting and understanding of others, which in turn just helps us grow as individuals and as people. Aside from just, the differences in culture and things like that, this experience also helped to kind of push us out of our comfort zone a little bit. And obviously we gained cultural competency, but in addition to that, for me personally, I've always been a very introverted individual. And so the experience of going to a different country with a small group of classmates that I knew pretty well definitely put me out of my comfort zone, both socially and emotionally. However, the experience in the end, definitely helped me be more open, be a little bit more extroverted, and helped me with communication skills aside from just speaking, right? Body language, stuff like that. In addition to this, there was also the challenge of a language barrier, which I talked about briefly earlier when I explained, sharing my experience with my English language learners. I had no prior experience in reading, writing, or speaking Spanish. I studied German for my foreign language when I was in high school. So, Spanish wasn't anything I had a background in. So that was a major challenge in the trip for me. But, with the help of a couple of classmates, with the help of Professor Sinelli, we were able to kind of overcome that, get a little bit more comfortable as the trip went on. And by the end, it was challenging still, but it definitely had paid off in the end. In addition to this, the trip pushed us to our limits in a few ways. So one story I have personally is our whitewater rafting trip that led up to our hiking trip the following days. So during the whitewater rafting trip, I ended up over rotating at some point while we were on our raft to paddle, and ended up tweaking or pulling something in my hip flexor. So the next 3 days, we had the hike ahead of us. Unfortunately for me, I ended up having that pulled hip flexor throughout the duration of the hike. So I was pretty much in pain every single step we took and stuff like that. So, it was a huge challenge, and something that I had to push through to complete the hike. And in the end, it definitely was more than worth it. So overall, I mean, just touching on a few things that I think our study abroad trip taught all of us in the cohort is, it taught us how to collect data in imperfect conditions and situations, showing that science is usually messy, and we just need to organize and make sense of the mess so that it's easy to understand for other individuals. In addition to this, it also taught us that things aren't always going to be easy. When you look at the fact that I'm a very introverted individual, and the fact that I had to face a language barrier, which a lot of individuals have to take. So things aren't always going to be easy, and you just kind of got to push through it, right? And then it taught us how we're going to face challenges and obstacles, and how things aren't ever always going to be perfect. But we need to be able to persevere and overcome these things. So in that sense, it taught us a lot about ourselves as well. And lastly, it taught us about differences in cultures, religions, lifestyles, and how every individual is their own person, and they're all going to be unique and different, which in turns just helps us be more empathetic, understanding, and appreciative of the differences other people have. So I would just like to wrap up this by saying the study abroad experience has changed me definitely for the better, and made me more outgoing, more understanding, more, like I said, empathetic. And I would just say, if any students have the opportunity to take part in the study abroad, I would absolutely recommend it 100%. You will be in great hands with Professor Snelly, and you will never forget the trip. I can promise you that. So thank you, and have a great day.